Hey, this is Pastor Curry, pastor of the Easy and Fair Baptist Church, Wilmington's most exciting church, the church that love ya and anything you can do about it. Today with Coffee with Curry, I am so grateful that we have our City Councilwoman, Harlee, who's with us today. I asked her to come on the show because there were several comments and things that were going on with the city and some of the budgetarial things, some of the water bills, and I hear it on the source, and I want to make sure that there is a response, there's a counter to whatever is being said. Hopefully, we're getting the truth regardless. But today's show is going to be about me asking the councilwoman some very, very tough questions. And I'm hoping that she will be able to answer them. Why don't you call somebody real quickly? Tell them Coffee with Curry is on and let's get after it.
Good morning, Delaware and surrounding areas. You are now tuned in to this week's Coffee with Curry. Join us every Sunday at 11 a.m. with new guests every week. So grab your cup of coffee and join us on Coffee with Curry.
And we're back. Well, it is a joy and a privilege again, Councilwoman Harlee, to be with you. I asked you to come on the show because I've heard several things that were going on, and I wanted to make sure that I go directly to the person, to the source. You represent the district that my church is in, and let me just, before I even ask you how you're doing, I want to say to those of you who are watching us that personally, I had to learn how to interact with very serious city council members. When I was dealing with Councilwoman Harlee, she didn't jump out and become the superwoman of the council, but what she really did to show me that she could be trusted, especially with handling easy and fair, is that she was able to navigate various things that was not popular without there being a lot of commotion and get it done. She got it done for Easy and Fair. She got it done for several other people over here in Southbridge. And I'm sure in her district. Please never evaluate a person based on how much they holler. My grandmother used to say something, and I hope you don't get mad at me, but my grandmother used to say, an empty wagon makes the most noise. Please understand this. Still waters run deep. And that's what I've learned. And while dealing with you, and I'm not here to impress you or to try to get some money out of you. None of those things there. There's some tough questions I'm going to ask you today, but I really, really wanted to thank you because you were very instrumental even in us getting the approvals that we need to get approved for our senior affordable housing that we're building now. So I want to first start off that way and say thank you so very much. Before we get started with some of my questions, and we're smiling now, so I hope you're smiling at the end of the show, but I want to ask, how is the family doing and how are you doing? You're retired now. You're looking like the $1 million that DuPont was paying you, but tell me how you're doing.
Well, thank you, Reverend. Thank you for once again this opportunity to be here. It's always a pleasure. And I am doing great. I'm really trying now to manage my time better. Now that I am retired, to be able to, be out in the community a little more than I was able to be out. Of course, since I was working from 8 to 5, I was very committed to being at home. I was working from home and not in the community during that time. So now that I have more time, I'm trying to balance my time with family, with the community, and even just having some personal self-care time. So I'm feeling pretty good today.
Well, you must have a whole lot of personal self-care time because you're looking really good today. And we're very great. And when you told me that you had retired, I'm going to sit here and say, are you old enough to retire? But one of the mothers here said, never ask a lady her age. So therefore we ain't going to go there.
Thank you.
But I'm very grateful that you took the time to be with me today because, throughout all the shows that I have, I've been hearing things, and not only hearing things from the show, but also some people have been making comments because they believe certain things.
Okay.
So I'm going to ask you directly some questions because I need you to answer them so that I can at least, and those who watch us can hear, as a council person, what's going on. And one of the questions is, I've heard you mention about the budget, the 23-24 budget, and how the city council negotiated really the largest investment in the history of city council that impacts Black and brown people.
Yes.
Help us to understand that.
Yes. I have shared that, and I try to share it as much as I possibly can throughout the community, because if we don't tell our story, it will not get told. So what that means is that during the budget last year, as you know, the mayor presents his budget and he presents his address and his department. So after they present what they would like City Council to consider to vote on in the budget, then City Council, we have our opportunity to add into the budget what we feel needs to be in the budget to represent the community. Most of the time, the mayor's budget encompasses mainly the operating budget, how they can pay salaries and pensions and benefits and things of that nature. And our focus really is the community. As the mayor, they're looking at that part of the budget. We look at the community side. So City Council, what we proposed when it was time for us to include our dollars in the budget, we included $2 million for neighborhood stabilization. $2 million, which panned out between December of last year of 2023 and March of 2024. 75 homes were selected to get at least $10,000 worth of work done on their properties. So again, in December of 2023 and March of 2024, the $2 million that we put in the budget, City Council, homeowners were able to just call 311, and their names were put in, we call it the home repair lottery. And not only that, but City Council made sure that it was a transparent process. Okay. So the mayor was visible, as well as our council president, Congo. So the two of them were actually on WITN and Facebook. Actually, you can see them pulling the numbers. We didn't have no names. When you call into 311, you were assigned a number. So we saw the 75 numbers being selected in December, and we saw the 80 some being selected in March. So that's the $2 million. So that's how that played out. So to be clear, when we say one of the largest investments, and then after that, I actually requested to see how many homes were selected throughout the district. So, we have 8 districts. So we wanted to see from the first district through the 8th, like how many homes were selected and how many homeowners benefited from it. And it was pretty equaled out the first selection in December. Now, the second home repair lottery, to my surprise, even though the council member didn't vote on that budget, that council person tend to have 16 people from their district to get home repairs, but they didn't vote on the budget. They didn't vote for that money for those homeowners to get that. Right. They benefited the greatest. I actually looked at it and I counted each one. I wanted to see how many, just so I would have the information, because it's so important to have the correct information. So we have a spreadsheet where you actually can see how many homes were selected for each district. So the $2 million. So then we actually got $350,000 divided between 13 council members. That was new money that came over to the City Council budget. So with the $350,000, we split that up, and between the monies that we already had plus the $350,000, each council person was able to help nonprofits. And the majority of nonprofits that requested money from me were Black and brown. I selected some of my other ethnic organizations because I believe in, spreading it out. So even though they didn't request any money, I identified the organizations that I know that are making an impact in the community, like the Children's Museum, for an example. And then we have the community education building, where Kuumba is in that building. And then there's another school there, Great Oaks is in that building as well. And they are doing a phenomenal job as it relates to our children being in that building They have complete wraparound services. They can get breakfast, lunch, and dinner, get their clothes washed, see a therapist. I mean, in the community education building, they're doing a phenomenal job. And I feel as though organizations like that, we should partner with them because they're making that impact. So the $350,000, then we put $300,000 into real estate and housing. If you are a Wilmingtonian or a resident of Wilmington, you can get up to $10,000 to help you towards home ownership if it's your first time. So first time home ownership, up to $10,000, providing that you go through a home buyers program, which is important because we want people to stay in their homes. It's one thing to get in your home, but you want to make sure people stay in their homes. And through these programs, they're able to learn about financial literacy, budgeting, etc. So we want to make sure that when they apply, that they come with a certificate of a first-time home buyers program. But the money is there. Then we added $250,000 additional to economics and development's budget for small minority businesses. Okay, the smaller minority businesses. So we added that. Then we also added money to the budget for Black Restaurant Week.
Oh, wow.
So first time ever. And during that particular week, we partnered with HBCU because we know that during that time, there's a lot of African and Americans come out for HBCU quite naturally, right? So we figured we would partner during that week, Black Restaurant Week. And then the big thing that we did was add, for the first time in history, add money to the budget for water bill utility assistance. So for people that are struggling, that qualify, and you do have to qualify because at the end of the day, we know that government is not a for-profit.
Right.
It is not a for-profit. That our two main revenue streams are wage taxes and property taxes. And so the more businesses, the more people that work downtown, the more people that live downtown in Wilmington, that is how we get our revenue. That's the revenue that we bank on, that we budget from, right? And so we have to always look at, everything as it relates to, how we disperse dollars and budget on dollars and things of that nature. But yes, for the first time in history, residents can now apply for water bill utility assistance. And that has never happened before. And the reason why we sort of realized that it was needed was because during the pandemic, of all the monies that we receive, which are called the ARPA funds, American Rescue Plan Act dollars that every state municipality receive. We receive $52 million. And so out of those dollars, we earmarked a big chunk of that towards water bill utility assistance because we knew that people were not working and that they would get behind on bills. So a lot of our ARPA monies were spent, but we still felt as though, okay, let's start putting money in the budget every year for those that really need it. So you do have to qualify for it. And so, so when I say, any council member say, it's the largest budget proposal in history that is invested in the brown and Black community, all communities, but it definitely gave equal access to brown and Black communities because anybody could call 311 to make sure that they got in the home repair lottery, right? Anyone can apply for the first time homeowners assistance, the $10,000. So it's the access that I'm referring to when I say the brown and Black communities. But before the proposal, $4 million of the ARPA funds were invested on the east side, but that story never gets told. If you ride through the east side today, Reverend, it looks like a completely different area. Matter of fact, you might get a little spooked over the fact that houses have been demolished because the focus was intentional from the very first day when the mayor started this term that we was going to focus on the east side, bringing it up, demolitions, revitalization, and new properties within a certain radius of the east side, primarily between 7th and 9th and Pine and Bennett. That's where the most blight, where you have the worst activity. And we have pretty much cleaned that whole area up, including buying up liquor stores. including buying up liquor
The staple
stores.
stores.
Yes.
Let me. Well, then, I think one of the problems in our community is we don't read. We can read, but we don't read.
Right.
And when a person or persons talk about the negative part of the budget, because I really wanted you to come today so that we can get an understanding of your comments that this is the largest budget for brown and black people. But why is it that this is not shared from City Council? I'm asking you directly so you're able to articulate all of these things to me. Why isn't there some information out there? Because I hear the two things that didn't get in the budget.
Right.
I hear how the budget was filled with increase in water, and that's another question I'm gonna ask later on. So you don't have to go there now.
Okay.
But why is it that we're not hearing about the wonderful things you're sharing? And it's happening, meaning the lottery. It happened. It was transparent.
Yes.
This is the first time I've heard of it.
Yes.
Not that I need to be informed,
right?
But when the narrative is out that nothing is transparent, that the budget is just filled to make sure the rich folks get richer, then what do you think you could suggest to those who are on city? Because it seems like, I've learned something. When there's a silence, that means you're sanctioning what is being said. When will you, I don't even know, you're not the city council president, so I can't really ask you directly, but what is your thoughts on how this positive message can get out more?
Number one, I'm always encouraging my council colleagues to share our story, share the success story with your constituents when you go to these community meetings, because number one, it's tough to try to touch everyone. But one, we did a press release, but like you said, if people don't read, they're not going to know about it through the press release. So it did go out on a press release, one. Two, I think that we just have to continually talk about it. Like I bring it up all the time. I'm sure a couple of people, like in civic associations, I bring it up because I like to remind them that, hey, we still have money in first-time home buyers program. We want you to spend it. We don't want that money to go back into the general fund. We voted on it so you can utilize it and so you can benefit from it to build up and stabilize our communities, right? So I tend to do it for that reason. I bring it up a lot. So I think that we just have to keep talking about it more than once, right? So I do think that sometimes maybe others may take for granted that, okay, this is like business as usual. And I'm like, no, this is not business as usual. We proposed a budget the first time in history, City Council, that really was a major investment in our neighborhoods in a way where it was equal access. It really is equal access. Because
the narrative that's out there is that you all are lame ducks. You're just there saying whatever the mayor is saying, y'all just doing it. And that's where I'm more concerned, because I don't think anybody should be at a place where you're just doing what you're told. You're saying, and especially when we get to the water bill piece again, and we'll take a commercial break,
okay.
but I want to make sure that you're here. There's a lot of shows on Channel 28. One of the places that a lot of our people get some information from is Channel 28.
Right.
I suggest that maybe we need to do more shows where we are talking about what's going on, the good and the bad, because sometimes there are things we can disagree, but I've been taught, look, because I disagree with something doesn't mean I'm gonna throw the whole thing away.
Correct.
You said several times, after your answer, I'm gonna go to a commercial break. You said several times that, certain city council persons or person, I don't know whether it's persons or person, who don't vote on the budget or who may not be more inclined. Does it help to be contrary? What does that do?
To me, my personal opinion is this: first and foremost, understand when you take a job, understand the dynamics of the job, the culture of the job, etc. And what I mean by that is city council is a team sport. I realize that I'm one vote. Okay, so therefore, I intentionally build relationships. I don't mean we have to go out and have dinner or anything like that. It's just like any other job. As you know, I had a professional career for 40 years, and you can only be on a job that long understanding some things, and building relationships is one of the key skills that I knew was important. And it doesn't mean that you have to agree with everything. It doesn't mean that you have to go along with everything, but it does say something about you in terms of how you want to show up in the world and how you want to show up in the space where you have commonality. So as it relates to council, most of the individuals, I did not know them before I got on council, but I began to study each one and learn each one to understand, like, okay, I know how I need to move with this group. But I will tell you, we are not a group that leans in to the administration. I can't speak for every last single person, but I will tell you collectively, no, we push back all the time as it relates to what the administration may want versus what the council feel as though is best. So that's a misnomer as it relates to we're puppets and we just go along with the administration and the mayor. That is not true. However, people want to create their own narrative. And I think maybe they feel as though it benefits them, it benefits their position and what they're trying to achieve to make some people in the community believe that narrative, but it is not true.
Okay. We're going to take a quick commercial break and we'll be right back.
Tune in at 8 a.m. every Sunday for our worship services. Join us at 9 a.m. on YouTube and Facebook Live by typing Zion Fair Baptist Church. We are Wilmington's most exciting church.
And we're back. Great first segment, and I'm really appreciative of getting some more information as it relates to the budget and how much really we are receiving as in the communities that are considered to be the Black and brown communities, as well as the city at large. But I was very grateful to hear some of these answers. Now, I saw some flyers posted all over in a lot of places, okay? And so I've got to ask you about this whole water, customer bills and things of that nature. And it was some organizations that were on the flyer, but have you seen the flyer first?
Oh, yes. I saw the flyer. Yeah. And that flyer was created, the organizations that are on the flyer, one of the organizations is the Homes Campaign, and the other organization is the Working Families. So those are the two organizations that are on the flyer. So that's factual. The thing about the flyer, I believe, they're activists, I guess, activist type of organizations. And so this is my opinion right now. They work with one of the council members to present legislation. Okay, and so their hopes, and I believe their goal, is that when they work with the council member, as we know, the fines and fees, the working fees and fines organization, the Working Families, Homes Campaign. I know we have a council member that works very closely with them. And, there's nothing wrong with working with other organizations. However, one of the things that we always have to be cognizant of and aware of is that we work for the citizens of the city of Wilmington. I represent the 4th District. I don't necessarily represent individuals personally on none of those organizations. I represent those that are in my district. So I want to hear from them. I want to understand, how they feel about different topics. So those organizations, I believe, work with the council member to sponsor legislation around, one was no foreclosures on houses due to water bills. So today, if you do not respond and you do not put a plan in place with the city of Wilmington between property taxes and water bill balances, your property can go to the sheriff's sale, like $10,000 or more. It can go to property, water, and property tax. So let me address this. So we have there's a council member, Councilwoman McCoy, who was already working on a policy to remove the water portion out of that equation. Okay, people have to pay property taxes, and if you use the water, you should pay for it. But we was working on that already, and we knew that it was coming down the pike, the policy to remove water from that $10,000 equation. So that one piece of legislation, we voted it down for that reason, because that's what the legislation was about, removing water from the equation. And I will point this out because this may come back. Oh, that's a policy, it's not an ordinance. Well, there is more technicalities that go into that. And what I mean by that is that Dover has to get involved, right, with that for us to make it an ordinance per the mayor. There was a possibility it could get vetoed, an ordinance. So instead of going through saying yes for the ordinance, possibly getting vetoed, and it goes nowhere, we're going to stick with the policy because we already know the policy is going to do the same thing. It's going to remove the water. It's a policy. It's not an ordinance, but guess what? That's a win for the community. We're not going to try to get tied up into the technicalities because we don't know what's going to get voted in Dover. Like right now, and I have a piece of legislation that's been down there for a whole year. So we went with what we know is going to work. And at the end of the day, the goal is the same, to remove the water, whether it's a policy or an ordinance. Is an ordinance better? Most definitely. We all know that. But at the end of the day, we want a quick win and a win right now. And down the road, we will discuss more about an ordinance. Okay. That's number one.
Now, I have some very quick, not quick, but some answers I need directly. Because when I look at their flyer, when I asked some people who I guess was supportive of this, and they how many were behind on their water bill?
There are the statistics that were behind. Well, a number of people can be behind on their water bill, but what is important to know is that there is water bill utility assistance. And people are behind for different reasons. And that's one of the things we never know. And until we really, dive deeper into how we can determine who's behind because it's not a priority versus who's behind because they're having a hardship. We don't know that just yet until that individual actually calls, because for you to qualify, there is some information that they will need. So, you can have a whole lot of people that are behind, but until they get that pink envelope, I'll be perfectly honest with you. In my younger days, the water bill was the last thing I thought about paying. I'm just being honest with you. Am I saying that's the case with other people? I don't know. But there was a time that was the last thing I paid. And what I mean by that is that when they threatened to shut my water off, that's when I would go down there and put in a plan. So we know that because they're behind, we don't know what those reasons are. But as I shared with you, we wanted to make sure money was in the budget. Like, for whatever reason you're behind, if you really are behind because you need help, the help is there.
Okay. Now, what about cutoff notices? Were there a whole lot of cutoff notices?
So a cutoff notice basically means, like what I was sharing with you, that when you get to a certain point and you do not pay your bill, then you get this 96-hour shut off. So basically, that's the city of Wilmington letting residents know, listen, we need your attention. And we need you to come in to talk and have a conversation about what you plan to do about the water that you use. That's what the 96-hour shutoff is all about. That doesn't mean you're going to get it shut off. That means that the city wants to get your attention to say, call us, come up here to put a plan in place so we can make sure that you have water and you don't have to get your water shut off.
Now, the question is then about, I'm asking you questions I should have sent you questions in advance so that you could have all the data, and maybe you'll come back again with some of this data. But how many of them water was actually shut off?
Under this current council, we have not. Let's see here. I got some information. Let me look on my phone and see if I can pull up some information real quick. The last number that I can recall, it was like, I don't know, 14 from 2016, something like that, from 2016 to 2024. But a lot of those...
Maybe 1,400?
14, just the number for 2 digits.
The water got cut off?
Yeah.
Wait a minute. We have 85,000 residents in the city of Wilmington. We have about, I guess, 30,000 plus resident.
Right.
Now, I saw some bills where certain people owe a lot of money.
Yes.
But which infuriated me that they got away with it. But you're telling me only 14 residential people were cut off that you, since maybe I'm not hearing you well, if you can give me a better understanding.
Well, shut off. Okay, what I wanted to speak to was owner-occupied homes sent to share sale over the period.
Okay.
Over unpaid water bills.
Okay.
And it was 17.
Okay, 17 people in that one.
Yeah, and most of them were investors. Okay.
Oh, okay.
Not showing up and things of that nature. Now, actual shutoffs, I would have to get that number. Okay. I don't want to misquote.
Right. Okay.
I do not want to misquote.
We would like to know that.
Well, if they got it shut off, it's simply because they didn't do anything. And that is one of the things that I'm not in support of, no shutoffs, because there's no reason to get your water shut off because we have removed all the barriers. Okay. Now, if you don't do anything, then you have to work with us to make sure that your water doesn't get shut off. We have money there. We even are, we're working on another, well, let me put it to you like this. The finance department, they have some checks and balances that they have as it relates to when people are behind. So in our discussions, we are talking about a checklist, which means that we want to make sure that we have contact because we send out certified mail. You have to open your mail. That's one thing. Open your mail, read your mail, respond if you need help. So there is a responsibility on the resident to do something. And I will say this, if you're 65 and over, there's a provision for your water. If you're 65 and over, for your property taxes, there's a provision. And if you're disabled. So we already have provisions in the code for these particular categories. And the legislation that was connected to that flyer basically wanted to do pretty much the same thing. So I'm speaking for myself, we already have those provisions. So no, I'm not voting that they can't get their water cannot be shut off because they have to do something. If you're disabled, there's a provision. This is what you need to do. Contact the city. If you're disabled, if you're over 65, your water bill and your taxes, there's a provision there. So no, I'm not going to say no shut off. I'm not voting for no shut offs.
Yeah, and I was going to ask you about that because that was one of the questions I have because you voted against some piece of legislation that was coming before City Council.
Yes.
That spoke to no shut offs, and you voted against it.
Yes.
Help me to understand why.
What I just said.
Okay.
All of what I just said, because there are provisions, but you have to do something.
Okay.
If we already have a provision that if you're 65 and over, a provision to help you with your water, to help you with your taxes, you have to just call.
Right.
The resident can prevent their water from being shut off if they do something. Reverend, if there is a law that says there will be no shutoffs for your water, can you imagine how many people will allow that bill to go higher and higher and higher? What's the incentive? If there is no consequence of not paying your bill, why would you pay it? Now, that's not everybody. You got some residents that are honest, that I can afford it. I use the water. I can afford to pay it. I'm going to pay it. But that's, the city of Wilmington cannot afford to open a door where you don't have no idea what the fiscal impact is going to be. When you have a budget that you got to manage, you got to pay salaries, and like I said, benefits and pensions, and pay your bills. And you're saying, okay, as it relates to the water, like that goes into the budget as it relates to paying for water and storage, because we pay for our water to be clean and sanitized and those things. So to say no shutoffs, the implications and the unintended consequences, I don't feel as though we should put Wilmingtonians, the majority of our residents, in that position. But what I do feel we have a responsibility to do is to support those that need the help the most.
And you're saying
and that's there.
And you're saying it's there.
It's there.
So as I've heard your whole answer, to make sure I'm clear, you're saying that if a person's 65 years old,
yes,
they need to call in, but there's a provision to assist.
Yes.
You're saying that if a person is disabled,
yes,
they have to call in,
yes,
but it's there for them to get to be able to be helped.
Yes.
You're saying that even if it's a person who is not of those two groups, but let's say if a person is just poor,
yes,
and they despondent, they out, they don't have what they need,
yes,
and they call in,
yes,
there's provisions to help them.
Yes.
Okay, so that's why you decided I'm not voting for this, because in actuality, you feel as if you have a fiduciary responsibility,
yes,
for the city. Now that's responsible, and everybody who knows me know that I am not outright liberal. All right.
Right.
I believe I have to pay my bills.
Right.
I believe that living in the society we live in, we have to pay. I see some of the children wearing the best of the best.
Yes.
And yet they're crying that we need this, we need that, and we need the other. But however, there are some times when people are very much in need.
Yes.
I was raised in the projects. I was raised with a lot of needs.
Yes.
However, we didn't prostitute the system.
Right.
Yes. And we prioritized the things that were needed to be prioritized. So now I understand a little bit better. I was very angry with you when I heard you had voted against it, but I'm learning to really be measured and pay attention. That makes sense to me. If your reasoning is it's all there,
yes,
you're saying yes to it, why make it illegal? Because of the incentive of I ain't gonna pay it now, and then it may create an even larger impact. We're gonna take a quick commercial break, and we're gonna be right back. We'll be right back.
Join us at 9 a.m. on YouTube every Sunday by typing Zion Fair Baptist Church.
Oh my God, help me today. Which means every storm is a school. Every trial is a teacher. Every experience is an education. And every difficulty is development.
We are Wilmington's most exciting church.
And we're back. Great conversation thus far. I'm able to get some clarity in some areas. I saw those posters splattered all over the place. And my council person was on there who represented the district that our church is in. And I really needed her to answer some questions. So when I called her and asked her to come on the show, she was willing to come on, but I did tell her it was going to be some hard questions asked, and she was still willing to come. And I'm grateful that you did come.
Yes.
Now, we were just talking about water, and you gave some clarity. You did not vote yes, you voted no, because the provisions are there. And you also made it clear that if there is no responsibility, that even the people who are paying may start not paying.
Correct.
I hear you, and I'm not going to argue that point. Now, there is supposed to be a 9% increase in water. Help me to understand, first, is it going to happen? And secondly, give me the process. Give me some clarity in that area.
Okay, so every year during the budget, the administration, they work with the consultants that work with all of those numbers in terms of water. So during the mayor's budget address, which happened back in March, and we had already heard, I'm on the finance committee, so that's one of the reasons why I'm very passionate about the truth being told, because I'm at the table, I'm in the room where I'm hearing these conversations, where we're presenting, we're pushing back, with the mayor, because he understands, the administration understands that this is a balance here. It's not just one way here. We hear respectfully what you're presenting and proposing, and then we want you, meaning the mayor, to respectfully, understand we have to do our job too, right? Okay. So when it was presented back in March, those of us on the finance committee, we already knew that it was not going to be a 9%. But of course, we didn't get out there and start talking about what we were going to do, because one of the things that we wanted to do was to be clear on where these numbers coming from, like the root of why is it 9%? Why do they feel as though it's going to be 9%? And I will tell you, hands down, those experts was able to convince me as to why we need to increase it. The 9% really would put it like projecting it out. Like they don't just look at the current year. They're looking at anticipation of, we have a lot of old pipes, and even though we know that President Biden is putting money out, to clear the lead out and all that, that money has not showed up yet. And based on the amount of money that's going to be dispersed to Delaware, it's not going to really cover anything extra. But when the experts share data with us each year, they're looking at emergencies as well. For as the pipes, like we have a number of pipes that busted this particular, within the last 6 months. You never know when a pipe is going to bust. So some of the percentages is to look at emergencies. Okay, 9%, we knew it wasn't going to be 9%. Okay, so we had 3 meetings. The finance committee had 3 meetings with the administration and with the consultants to say, hey, it is no way that we can, we see this does make sense. It did make sense. Let me be very clear. It made sense for it to be 9%, but we have to continue this conversation to figure out how we're going to manage it from now throughout the next 5 years, because they give you a 5-year projection. And keep it, manageable for our constituents. So to answer your question, we didn't go with 9, we went with 5.7. We had the experts to show us what 8 look like, what 6 look like, what 4 look like, right? And the lower you go, the more you're going to have to increase that down the road somewhere. So when we looked at the numbers, the 6% looked reasonable. It definitely looked reasonable, but we went down a couple of percentages, increments, and we came up with the 5.7, I think it is. Okay, which in layman's terms, that equates to maybe like $3.42.
What do you mean? So
instead of the 9, to answer your question, no, we're not voting for the 9. We're voting on 5.78. Okay, 5.78 or something like that. Okay, so with that increase, and to make sure that we can have clean water, and we have debt services that we have to pay. Like we pay other suppliers to, as it relates to water, storm water, and all. It's complicated. But we definitely had 3 meetings to understand the consequences of 8, 7, 6% increase.
Right.
And so we said, well, we can live with this amount without going all the way under. We're able to pay our debts, and we're able to manage it through this year. Okay, so this year, that's what it's going to be. So if you are paying, let's say, you have a household paying like $68.26, your total bill is $68.26. With what we voted out of committee last night, we voted the legislation out of committee, not 9%, but the percentage that I shared with you. Their new bill will be $72.12.
So that's a difference of this is an average on the average.
On the average.
So this is about $3 and how much?
86 cents.
So about 3. So a lot of this screaming and hollering, not that we want anything to go up, but everything is going up these days.
It is.
You're saying it's not really a major $70 increase, $70, $80 increase. It's about $3 and some cent average increase in water. And that is to ensure, according to listening to you, to ensure that the infrastructure of the water is maintained.
Yes.
Now, some will say that it's poor infrastructure and all that other stuff, and that could be why we need to increase it. But I just really, I was not happy when I was told, because I don't go to the city council meetings.
Okay.
All right, and we have the Source Show, we have other places where people rise up and say things. I know I see the water bill that comes to East Zion Fair, and I make sure it's paid every month so we won't get shut off.
Okay.
But I just, if you're telling me the average resident in the city, because I want to be clear,
yes,
is going to get an increase of about $3.70, you said?
86.
$3.80. So if we round it off as the teacher told, $4 increase per month.
Yes.
I'm not too sure if I really want to argue that too much.
We really did our best, like I said, to make sure that we balanced the budget and that we came up with something reasonable for our residents.
And it's been voted out of committee.
Yes, it's
and
voted
now it's
out.
going to the floor.
Yes.
Okay.
It's going on the floor. So what I'm telling you is factual. It's not 9%, even though it was circulated on flyers and mentioned. It was mentioned.
We have to be careful, and I'm talking to all of you who are here, and I'm guilty. We have to be careful about receiving one-sided information. One of the things I've criticized Fox News is that they are so pro-Republican. NBC, I guess, is so Democratic. I like CNN because they tend to share both views, but they lean more on the Democratic side. Can I just say this to you all? If I had known that we were only going to get an increase of about $4, and I'm rounding up, I don't know if I really would have took that on and been as angry as I was. Not that I believe that you need to get an increase, but there are other things we need to be fighting for. A $4 increase is different than the way I was understanding it. It's like I was understanding that the water bill was going to double. So if I was paying $70 a month, I'm now going to pay $140 a month.
Wow.
That's how it was really conveyed. And some of the narrative that came out did anger me. We have to be careful, and I consider myself to be educated.
Yeah.
But you sometimes the passion of people will get you caught up in things. So I'm glad you answered that, and I'm gonna continue to check and fact check you and them and everybody else. But if this be the truth, then you're gonna have to be able to see if 5.7.
Yep.
Is what it's going to be, and it's only going to be $2.86, or $3.86. I'm not too sure that's a fight we need to be fighting right now. I'm not sure. But you really say, well, Pastor, you ain't paying it. I'm paying it. Newcastle County goes up on our water bill, our taxes, and things of that nature. But some things you fight.
Right.
Some things you know what, hold it for another day.
Yes.
And I think that's important. Now.
Let me just make this point, and we, the city council, it's not about getting credit for anything, but we get hammered about, the flyers with the 9% on there. on the flyer with our pictures and all that, but nobody's going to come back with a flyer and say, you know what, thank you, City Council, for not supporting 9% and giving us the 5.78%. And we're talking about a $3.86 increase on the water bill. Because as you know, with post-pandemic, everything has gone up. And like I said, some of the prices we do not control. You don't control the prices that your suppliers, right? Tell you the cost is going to be. So like I said, we have a fiduciary responsibility to balance all of this out and to just say no, a zero. Guess what? To be honest, we would have loved to say a zero interest on an increase in water. We would love to have gone that low, but it wasn't realistic. It just wasn't realistic because eventually down the road, it's like kicking a can down the road. 2025, 2026, 2027, and then it could be double digits. We don't want that either. So we really, really did our best to get it as low as we could to manage the budget and make it reasonable for our residents.
So how is this bill going to look?
Which bill?
The water bill.
What I just shared with you?
Right.
Okay, so again, I'm giving you an example. So for a resident that typically uses like 4,000 gallons monthly, okay, which would come to like $68.26.
Okay, so that's what you're saying.
Yes. So if you're paying that right now, with what we passed last night, you will be paying $72.12. So you're going from $68.26 to $72.12.
Okay, so I understand that clearly. We don't have a whole lot of time, and you really have given me some good information. I want to bring you back. Could you commit to coming back every so often, just to be able to just give me some information and the people who watch this show on what's going on with City Council? I do have we have the source, and the source we hear some of the things that are going on. Some good, some bad. But I think because you're the district, and I'll take on any of your colleagues and have them come on to our show to kind of explain what is happening. And I don't think you all, and I'm going to give some advice, I don't think you all understand how Patti LaBelle got started. And y'all eras before mine, but when I read her story, she was in the audience and she sent a note up to the stage. And she said, I heard that woman by the name of Patti LaBelle is in the house. I want to hear her sing. And then all of a sudden, that's because back in the day, that's how they did stuff.
Okay.
They asked her to come on stage and sing, and that's all she wrote. And she became the great Patti LaBelle. I'm saying to you, sometime when others won't toot your horn, you may have to start doing it.
Absolutely.
That's all I'm saying.
Absolutely. And I appreciate you saying that. And one of the things that is important to myself and other council members is that we really strive to move and interact with respect, civility, and unity as much as possible because we are a team. You can only control, your narrative. We can't control other people's narrative. And so the one thing that I just, hope for is that individuals do not believe everything they read on social media, that they don't believe everything that is posted on the flyer. Look on that flyer to see who's behind it. A number of activists are on the uprise. And I will be honest with you, I have no problem with the activists. But I do feel as though there is a decorum. There is a way that, you can get things done without being angry, without being overly aggressive, without being cursed at. Like we were literally called some profanity. Profanity was used towards us when they learned that we said no. I got a copy of it on my phone from a person that works for the Homes Campaign and the Fines and Fees Committee. Profanity, has been used towards us. That's not necessary.
Yeah, we do need civility.
We do need civility.
And while I may disagree, and I've had many disagreements with the mayor, I've had many disagreements with the governor, the county exec. One of the things I will not do is I will not defame people. I will not make people. Matter of fact, what we just had. I was so impressed to see so many of you, the elected officials, to be at our groundbreaking. Everybody, nice. I'm not always Mr. Popular. Matter of fact, I'm never Mr. Popular in
Right.
most communities. But to see all of the people who showed up, the governor, you know, and I think Ms. Potter was there, and
Yes.
you were definitely there, and it was just so many, because we have to agree to disagree sometimes.
Right. Yeah, me and you have disagreed.
Yes.
Right, yeah, right.
That's why I'm
right?
shocked you even come on my show.
Yeah, well, you know why? I'm going to say this for the sake of what we're talking about. When you look at what's important, and if you don't get into personalities and keep the main thing,
Right.
we can work together.
Yes.
And like you said, when we ended up talking about what was needed over here, of course I could have said, oh, you know, the filing with the attorney general and all that, but guess what? I felt like I knew I didn't do anything wrong. So it didn't really matter to me, because sometimes and it wasn't done in a way where there was a negativity that I'm aware of was connected with it. I mean, individuals have a right to get answers. That's number one. So I didn't have a problem with that. You know, if you or someone else felt as though, hey, I don't like what I saw, I want an answer outside of that particular space, it was nothing wrong with that. And so when it was time for us to reconnect after that happened, it didn't even cross my mind not to support what she was trying to do. And it was because it was about what you're doing. The main thing is that we connect on the community level. You want to grow the community as it relates to building affordable housing or for the seniors. That is something that I'm always interested in, you know, making sure that we have more housing, affordable housing. We know that that's one of the number one needs across the country, not just in Delaware, right? So when you keep the main thing, you can have mutual respect and civility towards each other. And I think we demonstrated that.
Yeah, and matter of fact, it touched it warmed my heart when I can call him your nephew. He's always your nephew. But when Eugene shared that my aunt told me to come over here and see what you're doing, and he was in charge of housing at the time, and to help in any way I could, that showed me then that you weren't about the personal, emotional, because I said something or you said something, we disagree. None of that was the issue. The issue was the community can be helped. That's it. I don't know whether I can say DuPont may have taught you that, but I know one thing, that professionalism is very much what is needed and missing. Because at some point it becomes the narrative is, I hate you, you are the enemy because you disagree with me, when in actuality that's not the way it's supposed to be. It's supposed to be, you know what, we disagree on this issue, but let's find a way where there's a common ground. And I'm in that space now where I'm looking for the common ground so we can get more done.
Yes.
We may disagree on this one, but there's other things that still needs to be done, and I'm gonna need your help. I was taught this at Lincoln University, and I want to just share it as we go into our end of the show. And they said, I am because you are. So because of each other, we can make this community much better.
Yes.
Thank you so very much for taking time to be with me today. It has been a joy. And yes, I thought it was going to be much more controversial because I wanted to get some answers on some of the things, but I'm hoping that you'll come back on the show again and be a part of some of the answers that I may need, that the community may be asking.
Yes.
And same, I'll be calling on your colleagues too, because I think the more we hear, the better we'll be informed.
Agreed.
Right.
Agreed.
Thank you so very much. We'll be right back.
Hello, I'm Marcus Henry, and I'm running for Newcastle County Executive. I spent over 20 years working in state and local government, trying to bring the good programs and services you deserve here in Newcastle County. Please support my campaign. Please look us up at marcushenryde.com for further information. I look forward to meeting you all over the next year, and I look forward to your support. Thank you.
And we're back. What a great show today. Now, I started the show off with the understanding that there was going to be some fire thrown and some concerns, because when I heard about the water, when I heard about the budget, when I heard all the different negativity that allegedly was going on with City Council just being Muppets for the mayor, I was upset. I know that the person who worked with me is not the person who I've been hearing about. So I wanted to bring her to the show today and just ask the questions directly. And the answers she gave, I believe, are compelling. I believe that, at the end of the day, why vote on a legislation that is already in place? And yes, we can talk about the difference between a policy and legislation. And sometimes when you get all caught up in those politics, what ends up happening is it stays up in Dover and nothing gets done for the community at all. So as she was sharing that, I understood that we could still work on getting some good legislation, but we got to learn how to work together. We got to learn how to support each other so that we can do more for this community. I am very proud as pastor of East Zion Fair to say, even though Michelle Harlee is not a person who I live in her district, but my church is here. The people who I love is here, and I'm endorsing her. I believe she will be the candidate, and I didn't bring her on the show today so that I can endorse her for her re-election, but I brought her on the show today because I wanted answers. And as I continue to work with her, as I continue to see that she's really not about the games, she's quiet, she's sturdy, and she understands that her purpose is, and she's been helping, especially the Southbridge community, but she's been helping all those in the 4th District in different ways. So today, officially, I'm gonna endorse her and say, you know what? I think you should, those of you who are watching me and you in the 4th District, you need to be making sure that you are a part of this whole circle of people who really want to change Wilmington so that Wilmington will be a place that is safe, a place that is livable, a place that is understanding of the needs of the people, where people of African American and Latino descent will be able to feel comfortable at home. I am very grateful that she came today and I got the answers I needed. If you have any questions or concerns, feel free to call me. Until the next time, may the Lord God bless you real good.
Thank you for watching this episode of Coffee with Curry. Tune in next week, Sunday at 11 a.m.